Yeah, so I talk about social fluency in my etiquette book, Mind Your Manners. And I guess, when I was raised, my mother when I was very young, always said, live like a local. And so no matter where we were, if I was in Exeter, New Hampshire for boarding school, or we were on vacation in some, foreign country, if ever, I had a question or this or that, my mom would say, well, what would a local do? Do what a local would do. And so to me, social fluency actually, it's more about adjusting yourself ever so slightly to fit the group or country or language or setting that you're in. Not saying changing your personality. No, it's just micro adjustments. And that makes other people around you feel at ease. And once you put other people around you at ease, then you feel at ease, right? Then you feel like, and that goes back to that sense of human belonging.
Right. So it's not necessarily how you're portraying yourself. It's the connection that you have with others.
Right. It's being fluent in the language of being social. I mean, to me, I never saw etiquette as something formal and stuffy. I always saw it as putting other people around you at ease.
Right. And I think there's certain people, I would put myself in that bucket as well, where in environments that you control, perhaps you have social fluency, but perhaps on other situations, you're not sure exactly how to act, right? So there's different categories of social fluency. I would imagine there's ones around your career, there's ones around dating and relationships, family, different cultures. And I guess it's easy to put yourself into one social mode and kind of apply what you've learned in all of these different situations. Part of social fluency, I would imagine, is learning how to read the room in different situations and adapt to it.
Yeah. So, if you think about even amongst our day, depending on the different groups of people we're with, we automatically have different selves. We have different selves, and our different selves come out in different scenarios, right? The way we are with our lover is different from how we'd be with a colleague, how we'd be with our children. And with social fluency, I talk about also microcultures in my book. Microcultures, you're actually, even in one company, there can be different microcultures. Finance and accounting, they could be more shy and conservative, right? Marketing could be more aggressive, right? So different departments, even if in finance and investment bank, right? If you're a fixed income salesperson, you're usually speaking a couple languages and you're attractive, right? If you're M&A or if you're a trader, there are different stereotypes, right, of that. So when I talk about sort of social fluency, it's really just about, okay, we do know automatically, actually subconsciously we're already adjusting ourselves anyway, but then how to be conscious about it, right? How to elevate your consciousness and how to have that heightened self-awareness to know, oh, okay, I'm in such and such a country now with such and such people, or I'm with an older generation, I should be more respectful, right, etc.
How do you develop that heightened self-awareness? That's the key part.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it, I mean, there's nature and nurture. A lot of the times, especially when you're young, it really comes from your mother. The mother is the single most influential person in a child's upbringing. But of course, everything comes from the parents, and that's why upbringing is so important. And I have to say, actually, when I was a daughter and I had my mother, and she was strict, especially when it came to etiquette and manners and being polite and having common courtesy, she would explain a lot of things to me. So she would, if I was doing something incorrectly, she would explain why I should do it correctly. And I've realized for a lot of people, even etiquette like table manners, right? When somebody does something wrong or they're not quite sure which fork or knife to use first, it's just because nobody showed them how. And so it's the same thing with self-awareness. If in education, if nobody shows you how, nobody shows you another way, then your perspective isn't widening, right? And now that I myself am actually a mother, I have a stepson, and I spend so much time explaining to him when we're a house guest in friends' homes, right? I've noticed he doesn't really have the awareness. He's missing some social cues. Or for example, as a house guest, you should have an extra heightened level of awareness to be a good house guest, right? To make sure that when you leave your room, it's as clean as, if not cleaner than, when you arrived, that you're helping wash the dishes, right? And so he was doing things like he was leaving his dish in the sink. And so I had to say, hey, Jeff, that's not okay when you're a house guest, especially when our friends in this house, like they don't have help in this house and it's just us and them. So if you're leaving your dirty dishes in the sink, it means that you're not showing them respect because it means you expect them to clean up after you, right? And he's 19 years old now, and I really had to be on his case about that. But then I explained to him and he understood, and then he was very good about it.
Right. So with Jeff, obviously he's got a great mother.
Stepmother who's got
who's pretty much at the top of these fields, specifically with etiquette, right? You call yourself Miss Manners with a touch of Machiavelli, which I'd love to get into. But for someone that hasn't had that upbringing and they're 30, 40 now, and they just want to develop more self-awareness in general, does that just come from making mistakes and having these different experiences, or have you been able to cultivate that for others? Can you advise some people how to do that?
Yeah, well, making mistakes is the best way to learn, right? The school of hard knocks. I've made so many mistakes and I continue to make mistakes. And I think the most important thing is to really learn from them. So my mom used to say, there are 3 methods of learning things. The first type of person learns from others' mistakes. The second type of person learns from their own mistakes. And the third type doesn't even learn from their own mistakes.
I've been there.
No, we've all been there in different aspects, right?
Sure.
So I think step 1 is the intention to be more self-aware. That actually is the hardest step, right? Once you already have that intention, then you're way ahead, right? And then the second step is I'm an inquisitive person. I like to ask questions. So if I don't understand why something's a certain way, or if I'm not sure, if I'm venturing in a new industry or a new setting or a new environment or a new country, I'm the first person to say, how is it done in this country, right? I say, in China, we don't tip because it's offensive. If you go to a restaurant and you leave a tip above what is due, it's considered offensive. But when I was 14 years old and I left Hong Kong and came to the States, and I didn't tip my taxi driver, because in Hong Kong and Asia, we don't tip taxi drivers above what the bill is. I did that in Exeter, New Hampshire, and I got yelled at by the taxi driver. Right. And so now whenever I go out somewhere, I'm humble, I want to learn, and I seek out people who would have the answers in those particular fields, and I ask them.
Yeah, you kind of displayed it there as soon as we met, just 20 minutes ago. You were asking me all these questions about my story. I think you're like one of the very few rare gets that have actually taken the time to do that. So you're obviously putting it into practice. I want to go into your story a little bit. So you call yourself Miss Manners with a touch of Machiavelli.
Yeah.
What does that mean? And what's your history and your story for people that may have not heard about you so far?
Well, I've lived a couple of different lives, and I continue to live some more lives. I grew up in Hong Kong mostly, then studied in the States, Phillips, Exeter, Georgetown, Harvard Business School. Fun fact, I was a year behind Mark Zuckerberg in high school. Really? And when he founded Facebook, that term Facebook came from Phillips Exeter. It came from our school directory book. Colloquially, everybody called our school directory the Facebook. So we'd say, get an extension in the Facebook, get her email in the Facebook, da-da-da-da. Huh. So that's where Facebook came from. Of course, he founded it when he later on went to Harvard.
Did you know him?
It was, a school of 1,000 people and we were different grades, but I knew who he was. He was a year above me. Yeah. And his best friend was dating my assigned big dorm sister in my dorm. So I saw Adam D'Angelo very frequently. Adam D'Angelo actually also went to Harvard, dropped out to help found Facebook, and then founded Quora.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So after I graduated from Harvard Business School, I moved to Beijing. This is in 2012. I had a business idea, which was to bring the concept of a Swiss finishing school to China. And not for kids, but for adult women, so for ladies. And the course was called a hostess course, so how to entertain in the home, how to throw a dinner party, how to do table seating, how to do floral arrangement, all these fun things. And that's because I saw an opportunity in China where China was really growing, both economically and, in so many ways. A lot of foreign brands, luxury brands were all coming to China, luxury dining, etc., Michelin stars. Chinese people were becoming more international. But at the same time, there was a gap of knowledge and a thirst for knowledge of how to move through the world with more confidence and grace. Because remember, China went through a cultural revolution. And so they were very isolated for a very long time and only really opened up in the 1990s with economic reforms. So China only really opened up then. So, you had people, some of my students, my etiquette students, they grew up with nothing, with not very much at all. And then now they have everything they could want in the world, right? But at the same time,